All right, welcome everyone to the partner spotlight with Aurora Expeditions, going big with small ships and big adventures. Really excited to have everyone here today. Just a bit of housekeeping before we make the introductions here. Everyone is in mute or listen only mode. If you do want to ask a question over the next 30 to 45 minutes or so, just type your questions in the Q&A box. You should see it somewhere at the top of your screen or on the side of your screen, depending how you have your screen configured. We will answer questions at the end. Sometimes your question kind of gets answered during the presentation or even the kind of organic conversation that we kind of have here. And if we do run short on time and we don't get to your question, we'll email you afterwards with the answers, but we do mostly try to get to all of them. Please don't hesitate to ask a question. If you don't want to have your name shown when you ask, you can go into anonymous mode. There is an anonymous ability to pose a question. So by all means, we'd love to hear your questions during the end, no matter how big or how small. So without further ado, I'd like to make the introductions here to the team that we've got here from Aurora. First of all, there's myself. I am Thomas Lennartz. I'm the partner and managing director here at the Polar Adventure Company. I've been going to the polar regions for probably over 20 years, having been an expedition leader, having been a guide, having done film work up in the high Arctic for wildlife, scuba dove under ice, you name it. The polar regions are my second home outside of Toronto. I'm going to let the other two do self-introductions. We've got David Tanguay here and Howard Whelan from Aurora. David, over to you.
Thanks, Thomas. And thank you for the opportunity for joining you and presenting Aurora Expeditions. I've been with Aurora now for a little bit more than a year, but I am very happy and very privileged to have been in the expedition space for over a decade. And just like Thomas, I had the opportunity to travel in the polar regions multiple times, including Antarctica, Svalbard, Greenland quite a few times, and also the northern part of Canada. So it's really very exciting to be here today and to talk about why Aurora is an amazing company and to talk about our different experiences.
Awesome. Well, pleasure's mine to have you here, David. It's always great to talk to the upper brass over at Aurora Expeditions. And we've also got Howard Whelan, legendary Howard Whelan. I have to use that word, Howard. You've been in the industry for a very long time. I think you're a legend at Aurora and also outside of it. Your reputation precedes you. But without further ado, please give us a little bit of a background on yourself and what you do with Aurora.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all sitting comfortably. I started working with Aurora in the early 90s, so it's been about 3 decades. And I was brought on board by Greg Mortimer, who was the founder of Aurora. We were climbing partners. And we just started back in the days of the old Russian ships and have evolved all the way through to what we're doing now, which you'll see is quite different. I've got to say that the number of trips I've done, I've almost lost count, but I've got to say also that I leave in about 5 days to head back down to Antarctica again for the season, and I'm as stoked as ever. I just can't wait to get on the ship. I can't wait to take hopefully some of your clients and just to turn them on to this amazing place that we go and explore each year. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go ahead here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Howard. And just quickly before we go over to Aurora and why are we here with the Polar Adventure Company? We really do try to be the experts in just the Arctic and Antarctica region. Our customers really trust us as a third-party, unbiased entity to truly try to help find everyone the right trip and a partial guidance to get you there. We have a lot of selection of trips. We're kind of by everyone's side from start to finish, from selecting a trip all the way to travel. And definitely, we love Aurora Expeditions. We've got a lot of things to go through in the next 35 to 45 minutes. And here's what we're going to go big on today, but also kind of skim through on some things. But we've got a lot of customers that love to choose to book with Aurora, and there's their own reasons for choosing Aurora. We've got a lot of reasons why we like Aurora, from their ships and the kind of experience that Aurora provides. We've got Howard and David going to be talking about the Arctic and Antarctica and what you're kind of most excited about this with the next couple of years of itineraries coming up, because in this business you got to plan trips 1 to 2 to 3 years out, if not even further. We're only seeing the ones that are published now. Love to see this new one coming up with the Northern Lights in the Arctic and the 2026 solar eclipse. So I know David and Howard are going to talk a little bit about that. And of course, at the very end, we've got some great offers from Aurora for all the attendees. And then we'll finish up with a quick live Q&A session. So definitely feed us your questions in the Q&A or leave them for the end, up to you. But to start off with, as experts in our field, we've got customers who ultimately will select Aurora. And Aurora is really known, in our opinion, for having traveled with Aurora and having customers come back from an Aurora trip. And also, like what Aurora, and you'll probably hear from David and Howard today, they're really trying to provide an authentic expedition experience. And what does authentic mean? We're not talking about old Russian ships anymore. We're talking about some new, modern, highly technical ships, but the spirit of the Aurora experience is that authentic adventure and casual luxury, if you want to call it that, with some beautiful new ships. Super amazing. The X-bow technology with the inverted bow that really slices through waves instead of kind of riding up and over. And it's really a game changer in terms of crossing the Drake Passage. I'm sure, Howard, you and I were sharing some stories about how amazed you are compared that how they operate in these big seas sometimes, where wine glasses don't even spill like where they used to. Expedition team, really big focus on having a lot and high quality expedition team members on board the ship, which really augments the experience of guests on board. We also love, and our guests love, the fact that there's so many adventure options and extra activities that one can do to experience Antarctica, from not just off the ship and not just a Zodiac cruise, but if you wanted to, and I know, David, you're going to go into it more, from, kayaking, snorkeling, scuba diving. I mean, Aurora really makes it able to make it as a relaxed trip as you want, or really making it an active trip. They can really tailor it to how you want to experience it. Some really great solo options with Aurora. I think you guys just announced a whole new season where you've got a lot of new solo cabins, and really trying to provide more options for solo travelers. And of course, the ethos of purpose and the sustainability platform, being a B Corp corporation, is all really important things for our customers. And ultimately, you've got some amazing ships. I mean, Howard, I know you're going to talk a little bit about more here, but we love the small, intimate 130 passenger Greg Mortimer, the Sylvia Earle, and the newest ship coming here on the Douglas Mawson, all with the X-bow that slice through the waves. You have all the comforts of home, or actually more comforts of home. I don't have a jacuzzi tub and an infinity pool in my house, but you get them on the ship here. You got multiple dining options. So combine all that with an amazing expedition team, ships that are built for the polar regions, a really, really high guest to expedition team ratio, and you really create one of the top tier expedition experiences in the industry. So that's what we like, and what our customers like about Aurora is all about the getting off the ship. So without further ado, I think I'd like to hand it over to David and Howard to kind of speak about what is the difference? What is the difference that Aurora tries to create for their customers? Over to you, David.
Thanks, Thomas. Really appreciate it. And I loved how you talked about how we are a purpose-driven organization, because that is absolutely true. From the very beginning, Aurora Expeditions, we've been doing these expeditions for over 30 years now. And I know, Howard, you'll talk a little bit more about it, but there's one purpose for us as an organization, and it's to really create a community of lifelong ambassadors of the planet. For us as a company, what we want is bring people, any passengers who are curious or passionate about exploration, and to come to these remote locations and to learn from our expedition team members about these unique places, right? So we want to create a positive impact. We want to give these very unique experiences to these remote locations on small ships. And yeah, that's primarily our purpose and our vision as an organization. And I know Thomas talked a little bit about it, but just as a recap, what makes Aurora quite different from other expedition cruise line? Well, first of all, I've kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, is we want to drive positive impact, right? So when we go, for example, to Antarctica or in the Arctic, the purpose of our expeditions is not simply to have people taking pictures of wildlife, for example. Of course, that's something that we encourage and that we want to do. But at the end of the day, what we want is make sure that we create a positive impact on each passengers traveling with us by having this unique experience and learning from our expedition team members, but also on the environment that we're going to. And I'll talk a little bit more about sustainability, but positive impact is for us the core of the purpose of our expeditions. We are small ships. So as Thomas mentioned, the capacity of our vessels is 130 passengers for polar exploration, which makes our vessels very small compared to other ships out there. And obviously, there are some really, truly benefits from an experience perspective when you are traveling on small ships. And all of our ships are purpose-built. So they are built for explorations. All of these features that Howard will talk about, including the XBOW technology, which we Aurora introduced into the expedition industry, is meant to provide the best exploration experience into the polar regions. Education and enrichment is something that we really emphasize on. So our expedition team members, when they come on board our ships, they are there to not only share their passion, but also to make sure that each passengers, when they come off our ship, understand a little bit more further about some of the phenomenons of the polar regions, including marine biology or the Shackleton history, or, for example, penguins or polar bears in the Arctic. So we really truly emphasize on education on board the ship. And being a small ship, what is really the true benefit is more time outside the ship, right? So we don't have a lot of passengers to get off our ship. So by traveling on board smaller vessels, it does provide the huge benefit of spending more time outside the ship as well. We do have a lot of different activities that we offer during our expeditions, which I will share furthermore. And finally, as Thomas mentioned, we have an extremely great ratio of passengers per expedition team. And that enables each passenger to have this very personal approach and interaction with our expedition team and learn from them, or even dine with them and share an amazing experience. Just before I move to or pass the mic over to Howard, the one thing I want to just share with everybody is we are a B Corp certified organization, and that shows truly our commitment to sustainability. Since the very beginning, sustainability for us has been a very important component of our vision and values as an organization. And as recently as a year ago, almost, so about 11 months ago, we were officially certified as a B Corp organization. And B Corp certification, what does that mean? It really means for everyone that we are truly focused on purpose, on positive impact. And that includes education on board our ship, to all the passengers. It includes procurement with local farms about our food and beverages. It also means positive impact of the communities when we go, for example, to Greenland or the north part of Canada. And this is not the end goal, but this is part of a movement that we Aurora Expeditions want to be part of. And we obviously invite any organizations or any individuals to join that movement of creating a positive impact, as we strongly believe that the tourism industry has that opportunity to create a positive impact to where we go. So having said that, what I'll do is I'll pass it over to my dear friend and colleague, Howard, who, as he mentioned, will be heading down to Antarctica very soon. So over to you, Howard.
Thank you, David. That's fantastic. All right. I'm going to take you on board, but first I'm going to give you a little history lesson, and that is this fellow that you can see on the slide. That's Greg Mortimer. We were climbing partners. We were together on the first Australian ascent of Mount Everest. And shortly after, Greg then went down to Antarctica and did an amazing climb down there on the Admiralty Ranges. And he really wanted to put together a company that could take people to Antarctica. And he started with his friends and colleagues. And it coincided with the breakup of the Soviet Union. And that meant that there were suddenly all these icebreakers and ice strengthened ships available. And Greg was one of the first Westerners to go into Russia to negotiate to get a ship. And so for a long time, it was really the development and growth of Antarctic tourism was, funnily enough, the collapse of the Soviet Union. So he came on board, and we started to do trips on a 50-passenger vessel. We had several of them, but for the one everybody really knew was the Polar Pioneer. Now let's see, I just need to try and get down to the next one. Yeah, so this nuggety little pickup truck here, it was ice strengthened, took 54 passengers. It was pretty rough and ready on board. And we would all sit around dining room table. You get served one dish for the table, everybody ate the same thing. I should also say Aurora is an Australian company, and Australians are very egalitarian. And so we had sort of a very flat structure there. So everybody was on the same team, and everybody, we went out, we explored, we started most of the activities that other companies are doing today. We pioneered them. That was the climbing, that was the camping, sea kayaking, just pretty much most of the activities that we're doing. We were the first to do that. And what we ended up at the end of each trip, we ended up with 50 people getting off who were like very, very close friends. And we really, really loved, we loved that ship. We loved the impact that we were having. Excuse me. And it's interesting because now we've sort of formalized this whole thing about ambassadors and the whole thing, but really from the start, what it was about getting our passengers off and going and having experiences to touch their heart. They saw things that they couldn't believe. People wept when we left the continent, and it wasn't just because we were crossing the Drake and heading north, but it was because it actually did deeply move them. But the Drake crossings, it is an important thing to talk about too. Let's just see if I can pop to the next one. Maybe. Yeah, so what happened was a lot of these old Russian ships by say 2015 or so, they were starting to get, excuse me, they were starting to get a little bit, weather worn, and we needed to look for new ships. And so Aurora was met up with a Swedish guy, and it was always his passion to own a polar fleet. And he had thought about, what kind of ship would it be, the whole thing. And he ran into a young guy who he spent his teenage years looking at orcas and dolphins, and he became a boat builder. And he said, well, orcas and dolphins don't move through the water like ships do, like bang, bang, bang. They sort of dive in and then they pop out the other side, and they dive in and pop out. So he tried developing a ship design that would do just that, and he came up with the X-Bow, and it really, really is extraordinary. So Aurora went into an arrangement with this fellow, and we agreed on a smaller ship. We agreed on a ship that would take a maximum of between 120 and 130 passengers in the polar regions. And the Greg Mortimer was the first ship that was built. And I was telling Thomas the other day that when I first got on board, I was a skeptic because I had loved the old school, I was showing my age, but I just thought, how is it possible that we are going to be able to deliver that kind of experience in this like schmicko, fantastic new ship? And I got on the ship in Cape Town. It had been built just south of Shanghai in the big shipyard there. And they brought it across to South Africa, and I got on board, and I went in, and the dining room had white tablecloths and all these champagne glasses and wine glasses on the table. And I laughed, and I said to some of my staff, I said, boy, these guys do not have an idea of what the conditions can be like down there. We came out of port in Cape Town, and we went straight into a 4-day storm. It was a force 11, which meant 8 to 10 meter seas and 70 knot winds on the nose. And those wine glasses didn't move. We were just gliding through it. It was one of the most extraordinary experiences that I've ever had. So that immediately got my attention. And then once we started working with the ships and everything, we just found not only were they smooth, they were also very good in the ice, and they deliver a traveling experience unlike any other ship that I've been on. I've been on quite a few over the last 3 decades. So that was fantastic. But then the next question was, with all this fancy stuff on board, is that going to impact the experience? I mean, are we still going to bring people together? And I can tell you that we absolutely do. So I'm going to pop down to the next one. Okay, excuse me. This is I just want to show you a little clip here. This is just a little clip showing the ship pushing through ice. This ship has the same ice rating as the Polar Pioneer, so it's basically one level below a full-blown icebreaker. We can't break ice, but we can push ice around, and that gives us access to a lot of places that other ships can't reach. Now, just the other thing David mentioned, that we have the ability to get on and off the ship very quickly. We've got side doors on the port side, 2 on the port side, 2 on the starboard side. We've also got a marina on the back deck that allows us to launch Zodiac. So they really are designed for getting you off the ship as quickly as possible. Just on that, I just want to talk about the interiors here. We've got, I mean, as you can see, they're very, very comfortable. This is the lecture room on the Greg Mortimer. Lecture room is an area where we come together, and we usually have a recap. We call it a recap, talk about what we saw during the day, and a precap. Excuse me, which is the precap is the look at what we're going to do the following day and what changes. We've got to be very, very flexible, because although we give our passengers an itinerary when they book, we also alert them to the fact that we're very, very flexible, because as an expedition ship, if the ice moves, and it will, or if the weather changes, which it will, then we use our experience to get you guys to the best place possible under those conditions. And we sort of have a reputation for making a lot more landings than other people, because we do tend to push probably a little bit further. Part of that is really that just our teams are so experienced in working in the regions that we visit that we can find the little nooks and crannies where we can go and explore, even when the weather is quite bad in other places. We're not sharing the same meal for everybody these days. We've got unbelievably fantastic chefs on our ships. Each ship has 2 restaurants, and the accommodation, as you can see, is very, very comfortable indeed. So,
but of course, and then the old ships don't have saunas. But
Well, the Polar Pioneer did have a sauna.
yeah,
It didn't look anything like this, I can tell you that. It was these ships are so beautiful. They're so comfortable. Now we've got jacuzzis, a couple of jacuzzis on the. We've got two on each of the ships, but this is on the Greg Mortimer, and it really is extraordinary to be out looking at icebergs when you're sitting in the hot tub and just kicking back. Really, really wonderful.
yeah. But I love how these ships have also been really designed for the flow of getting passengers off. And I know these some people call them mud rooms, some call them ready rooms, but these ships have a pretty good one.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're designed. Imagine they're like an airlock. You step into it from your cabin. You get your gear on. That you're going to step out and go into a completely different environment. And then when you come back in, you can take all that gear off, which might be wet, from the snow and everything. Come back, you hang it up, leave your boots there. Just keeps the interior of the ship very, very clean. And it also is actually very, very convenient. So you're not sort of lugging your jackets and your boots down to where you exit from the ship. But the other thing about these the mud rooms, everything in the mudroom dries very, very quickly. So there are a couple of things that are really useful for the environment that we're working in. Okay.
No, I know,
Expedition.
and I know, Howard, like, one of the, wanted to have you talk about a little bit about the quality and the veteran, the tenure, the depth of expertise that that Aurora has. It's not just a volume of guides with 1 to 7, but I think you guys have a really good, high quality caliber team. How is it that that's come to be? How does Aurora attract and keep such a good quality team? Is it you?
Yes, of course. No, give me a break. No, no, it is. No, what it is it's. I think that we provide a very supportive environment, and we bring people on, and we've got it's our training program for our guides. In other words, people come on and they may be, experts in one particular thing, but we just help them. We teach them. We're part of the Polar Tourism Guide Association. We actually train. Rather than training, we assess all of our guides to make sure they're up to a standard. But in doing so, it keeps them fresh. It keeps them refreshed on everything from driving zodiacs to communication, navigation, the whole thing. But we are going into places where, you're going to look up and you're going to see a rock band, and you're going to want to know why there's that black bit in the middle and why it's this, or you may not. But we want to make sure that there's somebody on board who can answer those questions. So we actually do staff the trips specifically to where we are traveling, and that's very, very.
What's an example of that?
Okay, so an example of that is when we're in Antarctica, if we are heading to South Georgia. South Georgia is it's a wildlife oasis, and we want to make sure that we've got, the top, the top penguin people, and the marine mammal people on board that one, because, that's just, you need an explanation. You need to know why you've got 400,000 king penguins, just on the shore where you're heading to. And I just think that for people, the more people know, the more they get from the places that they visit. We just try and go by that philosophy. And Greg Mortimer was, he was a geologist. He started as a geologist, and he was a geologist working in Antarctica many, many years ago. So he always, he came from that kind of a background, and so he really instilled that at the very, very beginning, and it's something that's carried us through. I should say one other thing about our staff, and that is that they're really wonderful people. They're not just experts in what they do, but they're just they create a very warm and welcoming atmosphere, and they like to listen. You know, they don't just like to talk, but they like to listen. You know, we all have learned over the years that you know, we might think that we're pretty cool at what we do, but you know, you sit down and you start talking to some of the people who've come on board, and it silences you pretty quickly because you know, we have fantastic people who come on board, and I just really you know, I really respect my teams because they get it. They understand that you know, we're all in this together, the team. And I should say that we try and have a, you know, a team spirit where it's the passengers, it's the hotel staff, it's the bridge guys, it's the seamen, and it's us. You know, we're all part of the same team, and we try and uh, share that sort of spirit on all of our trips. So.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking of trips, like talk to me a little bit about this Antarctica map. These are all the places that you kind of hit, of course.
Excuse me. Yes, we've got the uh, okay. So this is the South American side. So, and this has been what has been our focus, certainly for the last sort of 10 or 15 years. We've been doing trips down out of either Ushuaia, which is in Argentina, and we've used to sail across the Drake Passage and then sail home. And when you see down here, you can see this chain of islands that we come to from Ushuaia down to the South Shetland Islands. That's about a day and a half travel. So we might leave at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, and by Thursday afternoon, we're hoping to make our first landing in Antarctica. So we've got not just the Antarctic Peninsula, which you can see down here, and that's sort of split in my mind. It's split on the west side, and the west side is very much like, if you imagine the Antarctic Peninsula is like a wedge, and so the western side is very, very steep, and the other side is like the polar ice cap coming down to the sea, and they're quite different. They're quite different environments, and different trips explore different things. But then we've also, if you look up at the north, you can also see South Georgia, and we're missing, yeah, right. Okay, further over to the left, you've got the Falkland Islands, and we've got several of our trips include all of that. They include the Antarctic Peninsula, South Georgia, and the peninsula. And people have asked me, you know, if I could only go on one trip in my lifetime to Antarctica, what would it be? And I always say, if you
It's a
can
tough
do it,
question.
yeah, it's a very tough question, but I do believe if you can do the Peninsula South Georgia trip, you know, if you can combine those, because we kind of throw the Falkland Islands in at the end or at the beginning, and in those in themselves are extraordinary wildlife places. But that's always kind of one of the things that
It's
I
always
mean,
it's the trade-off of time, right? If you
it
can
is.
afford if you can do a 2.5 to 3 week trip, then yeah, you do the South Georgia component. Time and means every but it is, I agree with you. South Georgia is epic. It's a really incredible biodiverse system. So yeah, if and I'll say the same thing. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Now
Um,
but we
yep.
also wanted to talk about the that you can skip the Drake if you wanted to.
You can skip one of your crossings if you like. So we have what we call fly sail or sail fly. And a fly sail is one where you depart, you know, you depart from either Ushuaia or Punta Arenas, and you sail down. And then at the end of that trip, you get onto one of these fantastic little planes, and you fly from Frey Base, which is a Chilean base on King George Island down in the South Shetlands. You can see that marked on the map, and fly back to Punta Arenas, or you can fly down. So skip the downhill leg and fly to King George Island, board the ship, and then sail back to either Punta Arenas or
Yeah.
Ushuaia. So that's terrific. Let's see. I think we're just talking a little bit about, you know, we've got First of all, I should say that I'm going to talk a bit about activities, and there's a big push for activities, but I just want to make it really clear that even if your clients just want to go to Antarctica and observe and go and make landings and not have to paddle kayaks or climb mountains or ski, we can do that. And a lot of people do that, and they love it. And it really is that's sort of the skeleton of what we do. That's the bones of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, the makeup is the the other stuff, and a lot of people are very involved, love their activity sports. I do too. I'm a climber and a skier, and so any chance I can to ski and climb down in Antarctica, I will take it. It's just to do the things that you love doing up in the, say in the lower 48 or up in, anywhere in in North America, really, or Europe, to do those activities and do them down in Antarctica, it's a whole nother level. And as I said before, we did pioneer these activities like, like kayaking, snowshoeing, snorkeling, etc. We also have climbing. We've got diving.
That's amazing. That picture that she's it looks like it's not Antarctica in terms of it's Antarctica, but she's not wearing a big parka because you're active and you're it's the temperature above zero. It's like a spring ski conditions. And a lot of people ask us how cold is it going to be? And I love this picture here because it does show that it is a temperate, and I put that in air quotes, climate, because it isn't mustache encrusted explorers. It is above the freezing mark. Things are melting. If the sun is shining and there's no wind, you can be getting your Arctic tan or Antarctica tan on for that matter. Your chocolate covered face and your hands when you come back off a trip like that. No, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Um,
can
yeah,
I
sorry,
say one thing on that?
Howard,
Just really quick on
yeah,
temperature. When I first started to go to Antarctica 30 years ago, we would have maybe half a dozen days of the season where the temperature went above freezing. And now we have half a dozen days when it goes below freezing. So it hasn't been a big change, but it's been a very relevant change. And we do have, I got a text yesterday from one of the guides, and they were skiing and they were actually skiing in t-shirts. So it is changing. So, okay.
Oh, it is for sure. But there's a lot of itineraries here that I want to talk about the other side of Antarctica. We call it the Ross Sea, the New Zealand side of Antarctica, and Aurora is one of the few operators that does go onto this side of Antarctica. Can you just talk to us a little bit about this side of itineraries?
Absolutely. I'm so excited about this. We call this the far side. But this is an area that we have, we used to work extensively down here in the past. We used to have trips similar to the ones that we're going back to offering because we now have a ship that can do it. And we're going to be introducing a new ship called the Douglas Mawson that will be working in this area. Excuse me, but we've got essentially, it is, if you imagine Australia and New Zealand and go straight south from there, and that gives you entrance into the Ross Sea. But we also have a trip that goes a little bit further to the east. We call it East Antarctica. It comes down and it goes to a place called Commonwealth Bay and Mawson's Hut, and that's really the ship was named after the man, Sir Douglas Mawson, who used that hut. And there's great history for it, and to be able to land there is quite an extraordinary thing. To be able to go land there and go into the huts there. But also, I just say before we get down south even further, I just have to say that these subantarctic islands of Macquarie, the Auckland Islands, Stewart, the ones you can see here, they're unbelievable. They are unbelievably beautiful and really remote. I mean, people, you really get a feeling that they don't get a lot of visitation, these places. And although they are really set up, the Kiwis are fantastic. They can, on Campbell Island, for instance, in New Zealand subantarctic, they've got this boardwalk where you can walk right up and see like dozens and dozens of royal albatross nesting and courting, and the whole thing is just absolutely breathtaking. Anyway, so you've got your islands, which are fantastic, and then you go south. Now we are going a lot further south than we go in the on the peninsula. We're also going to be pushing through a band of pack ice, which tries to protect the Ross Sea and East Antarctica. Excuse me. So it's quite a bit different. There is a different feel to it. It's sort of like really going into the deep south, but unbelievably fantastic. Really good history. So if you just look at the map, you come down to a place called Cape Adair. That's like the entry point into the Ross Sea. That's got the planet's largest Adelie penguin rookery. It's also a place where one of Scott's teams went and spent a winter, so the Campbell hut is still there. The first landing in Antarctica was on Cape Adair. And then now this is further south in Ross Island. That's the Scott hut. That's where Scott spent his team spent a couple of winters there. And not far from there, excuse me, is Shackleton's hut, which I think might be the next shot. It's quite interesting, these huts.
I love this. It's great.
It's fantastic. But you go into the Scott hut, and it has a really eerie feel. It has a feel of sort of unfinished business, and because of the tragedy of that expedition. But when you go into the Shackleton hut, which is here, Shackleton turned back 100 miles from the pole in his attempt, and it got everybody out alive. And you go in, and this place just has a really warm and wonderful feel. But this is one of the things that attracts me and attracts our guests to the Ross Sea region. The other thing is we've actually got a trip, we call it Epic Antarctica, and that will go down from, I believe, New Zealand into the Ross Sea, and it will then come across the Ross Ice Shelf and finish up in the Bellingshausen Sea and up at the Antarctic Peninsula. The Ross Ice Shelf, by the way, just to give you an idea of the scale down there, the Ross Ice Shelf is roughly the same size as France. So we're talking about big pieces of ice. It's pretty wild.
And then I'm going to flip forward here because you also have the Arctic side of things. There's some, and I know we're getting a little short on time here, so if we can just fly through the regions of the Arctic.
Yeah, so you're looking at basically you've got Iceland, Norway, the coast of Norway, and then you go up into Svalbard, which includes Spitsbergen, which is the island over on the left in this archipelago called Svalbard. Come across to Greenland, and then of course from there, that's also the launch pad for the Northwest Passage trips.
Yeah.
So there's a lot happening up in there. Just just a quick bullet point in terms of like what does each area offer. Svalbard offers lots of wildlife. You've got reindeer, polar bear, excuse me, walrus, which I love walrus. They're such characters. Greenland is more of you get a little bit of more anthropology, more of the indigenous people over there. And we've got programs now where we're actually bringing Inuit guides onto the ship who travel with us for part of our Greenland trips.
Love it.
And it's just fantastic because they do these little presentations like, how did they actually light the interior of a skin hut, and this young woman, oh God, she was so funny. She just did a fantastic presentation, which brought their history and their culture alive. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And then, this is, typical painting. They used to have the colors for administration, medical, etc. And anywhere. I just recommend, getting on board a ship and coming with us to explore.
Awesome. Well, Howard, thanks for taking on that little journey of the history of Aurora, the past, and I know this is now looking forward to the future. David, I know there's a couple of exciting itineraries you wanted to just quickly highlight for everybody over here.
100%. And really the amazing story that Howard just shared with all of us. But one thing I'd like to say is we've got some really exciting new itineraries. So about 2 months ago or less, early September, we just launched our 2026 Arctic season, which basically means departures between May 2026 up to the end of September 2026. And I've got two itineraries here, and obviously we've got a lot more: Svalbard, Greenland, Northwest Passage, which was mentioned by Howard. But two very unique itineraries that I'm very excited about is, first of all, the Northern Lights Explorer, which is a little bit longer itinerary out there. It is in 19 days, covering the Norwegian coast of the northern parts, which is stunning for those who have never been there. And then we're crossing over to Jan Mayen, one of the northernmost volcanic island in the world, transferring to one of the largest fjord systems in the world and the longest, which is Thorsby Sound. And we are doing this in September 26, primarily to give an opportunity to our passengers to see the Northern Lights. So if you are a Northern Lights aficionado or passionate, definitely this itinerary offers amazing opportunities to see not just the Northern Lights, but incredible landscape in the Arctic region, including incredible fjord systems.
Yeah.
And then, speaking of fjord systems, the other itinerary that I'd like to share with everybody is, in case some of you are attending to not know, there is a very unique phenomenon happening on the 12th of August 2026, which is a total solar eclipse, which can be seen in a very specific vicinity in the Arctic, nearby Thorsby Sound one more time. So we will be doing an itinerary that we call the Jewels of the Arctic. And that itinerary is really great for several reasons. First of all, I always say that if this is your first time in the Arctic, this itinerary gives you the opportunity to really see different destinations during one trip. So you have the opportunity to see a little bit of Svalbard, which is a great destination for wildlife. Then you go to the east part of Greenland, where you get to see the longest fjord in the world and also the largest national park in the world. Finally, finish in West Fjords and Iceland, where, of course, you can see incredible landscape. But on the 12th of August, the ship will be stationed around the entry of Thorsby Sound Fjord, give the opportunity to see this incredible phenomenon that is the solar eclipse.
Yeah.
So if you are interested to see that, we still have a little bit of space, but it is running quite quickly.
That's great. No, it's I've done a lot of research on the eclipse, where the best place is to see it, because the where it's coming down, it kind of comes across Greenland, it comes over Thorsby Sound, and then it'll just skim right in front of Reykjavik. And by putting the ship out here, it's actually really it's a great place to put it because it'll minimize the cloud cover. So it's well designed for that.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of like Black Friday season. It seems everyone's seeing Black Friday rates on here.
Yes.
So wanted to get, and Aurora, you've got some fantastic stuff coming up here. So David, quickly on what is Aurora's Black Friday savings event?
Absolutely. So for those of you who may are looking for a last minute trip in Antarctica, so right now, as you may be aware, the season has started. So we do have some remaining space for upcoming voyages up until the end of March. So if you are interested to join an expedition to Antarctica, we are offering up to 25% off, plus an additional $2,000 US per person off that you can apply flights. So basically, we will apply a discount to your cabin, and that money you can save it and help you purchase your flights down to all the way down to Australia, where you will embark the ship. Right, so that's our offer that will end on December 3rd. So technically 2 weeks from now to benefit from this special savings. And then for Arctic 25, so Arctic, again, this includes Svalbard, Greenland, and the Canadian Arctic. Any departures between May to end of September, we are offering about 25% off. Plus, we are offering a complimentary stateroom upgrade. So if you are booking, for example, a lower end balcony stateroom, we will upgrade you to a better balcony stateroom, complimentary and no extra charges. So again, a great opportunity to make some savings. And then if you are a solo traveler, it's not mentioned here, we do offer a departure with no solo supplement for Arctic 2025 as well, especially in Greenland and also in the Canadian Arctic. So if you are a fellow traveler who's had Arctic on your bucket list for quite some time, you're not necessarily interested to share a cabin or to pay the supplements, obviously, we have the opportunity to help you save some money and have your own cabin and no extra charges.
Fantastic.
Okay. And just very quickly, what does that mean in terms of pricing? What does that include? So depending obviously on the expedition, but technically speaking, for all of our expeditions, we always include a free embarkation hotel night where we have a team that will welcome you and provide you all the assistance that you need. Airport transfers. During the expedition, we also provide obviously other short excursions on the Zodiacs. In some cases, we have chartered flights, and that applies more to the Arctic, where we fly people from one location to the gateway for embarkation. House drinks, so beer, wine, at dinner time, free Wi-Fi, which we use Starlink, and any port charges is all included, so there's no taxes. And when it comes to gear, we provide the parka, which you get to keep at the end of the trip. We also let you use our mug boots, which are very comfortable and allow you to walk freely in sometimes very rugged areas. So you don't have to bring your own boots or special gear to come on our expeditions. And then just to finish very quickly, we spoke about activities. So, depending on the expedition, obviously, we have multiple included activities, including Zodiac cruises, which apply to any of our polar expeditions, any walks, any hikes. We do have dedicated photographers on our expeditions as well, who are there to assist any passengers who want a little bit more about photography. Howard and his team, they're always there to provide lectures and share their passion about the polar regions. We do offer the opportunity to jump in cold water, so it is not mandatory and obviously not force anybody to do that. But if you are like me or Thomas or Howard and you like to experience and push your limits, then we welcome you to do that and jump into cold water. And then we have optional activities as well that you can sign up, such as camping, kayaking. We do diving in Antarctica, snorkeling as well, ski touring, snowboarding, etc. So lots of different activities that you can pre-register. Not everybody can participate because there's limited space. So if you are making a booking, please let Thomas and his team know, and they can look into the availability for those activities.
Yeah, thanks, David. It's definitely one thing we do recommend to guests when they ask when should we book. And one of the limiting factors, if you do want to go kayaking or any of these things, because there's only 10 spots, you typically got to book early. So booking early, otherwise, if you book too late, then a lot of these optional activities are not available because it is limited to like 10 people or so.
And they do fly off the shelves very quickly as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, David. And I got to say, like, I know Aurora is really coming up a lot in the industry publications. I seem to see another award every other day. So you listed here a few of them.
Exactly. And we just recently, and it's not listed here, but we have won a couple of weeks ago the best expedition cruise line for 2024 with the World Travel Awards. So again, something that we're very proud of, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. We're very fortunate to have expedition team members like Howard to make our passengers have the best time of their life. So thank you.
Thanks. And speaking of thank you, I again wanted to thank Aurora for being able to attend and kind of talk a little bit about their value proposition to our guests, our customers. But in addition to thank you to everyone who's attended and registered for this webinar, you get a $150 onboard credit in addition to what the current offers are in the market on any new booking made by December 3rd, and that's only with the Polar Adventure Company. Ultimately, next steps, what can you do? How can you find Aurora? If you go to polaradventure.com and our trip finder up here in the top of our page, you can always look for a filter, look for an operator, AE Expeditions, just shorten a little bit, Aurora Expeditions, and you can find any of the trips for there, or just email us and we'll do all the legwork to find the right trip for you, kind of listen to what you're looking for, looking to do, and then match up with the right trip. That kind of brings us to the end, to the live Q&A section. I know we're a little bit over time, but let's try to get through a few questions at least. Clayton, if you're there, I know you're moderating, been watching the questions come in. Can you kind of pick some of your top 3 questions if you can? Clayton, if you're there.
Hey, Thomas, sorry, I'm just on the phone with a client.
That's great.
The only question we have left is, what are the chances of seeing polar bears or narwhal in the Arctic?
That's a great question. I love that question, but I'm going to leave it to Howard because I think you've got a bit more tenure than even I do.
Let's do this. Yes, good question. It depends on where you are in the Arctic. Okay, so narwhal, very unlikely to see pretty much anywhere, although if you're doing the Northwest Passage, they have seen narwhal up on the Northwest Passage. Polar bear, very likely to see in Svalbard and in possibly West Greenland, down southern Greenland, West Greenland, definitely over above Canada. So that's those are your best for polar bear and narwhal.
Fantastic. And I know we also have one here for, do you have any deals for singles? I know we touched on that a little bit. You do have the no single supplement coming up for some of the Black Friday offers. There's also dedicated solo cabins. You've also, and David, is there anything else that any solo travelers that you want to point out?
No, I mean, you've mentioned it, Thomas. We have great offers right now for solo travelers. Normally, our supplement is 50% additional to the cabins, but as of now, we do have departures that we offer no solo supplements. So, especially for Greenland and the Canadian and Arctic for 2025. So, if you are interested, let Thomas know and his team, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Well, and don't forget, you've also got the sharing option.
We do.
Which very few operators actually do, where if you because the solo cabins are slightly more than a double occupancy price if you just work out the math, which is still a great option. And the sharing, though, if you're willing to share with another person of the same gender, Aurora actually looks for someone else to go in the cabin with you, and if they don't, you get the cabin all to yourself. So that's it's a win-win.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that is it for today. I wanted to thank everyone for attending. Thank you, Howard, for coming, and David for coming in today and presenting to everyone here. Always a pleasure. And Howard, one day I can't wait to sail with you and listen to more of your stories over a longer period of time.
I look forward to it, Thomas. Make it an epic Antarctica.
No, I know, from one side to the other. I'd love to do that. I just got to get some marital permission to do that, which I don't think will happen. Yeah. David, thank you very much.
Thanks, Thomas. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Right on. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.